Hello, everyone. Today's lesson is on population interactions. This is the second LEQ in our Unit 8 Ecology unit. So we're looking at how do populations interact with each other. So one of the things that we're going to be looking at is the different ways that populations of organisms in a community can interact. So one interaction that they can have is something called competition. So most of you have heard of this word before. A lot of times if you are on a sports team or even like doing a band, orchestra, choir, you'll have bands in the stands where it might be a competition. You'll have different things. A competition is where organisms compete for something. So in a sporting event, organisms are competing to win the game. In a band competition, organisms are competing to play the best or have the best formation. But in ecology, competition means organisms are competing for abiotic and biotic factors. Competition occurs because resources are limited. So there's not an unlimited supply of these things. If you remember, abiotic factors are the non-living things like space, water, sunlight, soil, or habitat. And biotic factors would be things like food or mates. If you notice, these two deer are fighting probably in what is called the rut season, where they are looking for mates and they will actually fight each other in order to get a mate. So other ways that populations interact. You can have predation, and this is where one organism feeds on another. The predator is the organism that is eating the other organism. The prey is the organism that is getting eaten. So if you look, you see this little guy's eating probably some type of dragonfly. A special type of predation is something called herbivory, because we don't really talk about predation being, if a rabbit's eating grass or clover, we don't think about rabbits as being a predator. They're not going around. It's not like the grass is getting up and running off and they're chasing it and things like that. So organisms that are eating plants, it's called herbivory. So that's a special term for plants getting eaten. Another way populations interact, just like there is competition, there is also cooperation. Organisms can work together to complete a task and help each other. So there are a lot of organisms that would be considered pack animals, and they work in packs to get food that they would not necessarily be able to get on their own. And the pack actually protects and helps the individual organism. So they're cooperating, working together to basically stay alive and get food, things like that. All right, the other types of interactions, these are called symbiotic relationships. A symbiotic relationship is when an organism has a very, very close relationship with another species of organism. And there are basically three main types of symbiotic relationships. The first one that we're going to look at is called parasitism. This is when one organism benefits and the other organism is harmed. So if you look at this picture, the tick is going to benefit by being on the dog. It is going to be getting blood from the dog. It's going to be feeding on the dog. The dog gets harmed by the tick. So ticks can have all sorts of different diseases that they can give not only to people but to animals. So this is a parasitic relationship because the tick's going to benefit, the dog or maybe even the person is going to get harmed. Notice that the tick is actually living on the dog. Mutualism, both organisms benefit from the relationship. So a bee pollinates a flower, the flower gets pollinated, the bee gets food. And so this is definitely a mutualistic relationship. They both benefit from this. The other one is commensalism. One organism benefits and nothing really happens to the other organisms. So if you think about like clownfish living in a sea anemone, the sea anemone really doesn't care that the clownfish is there. The clownfish gets protection from the sea anemone because the the sea anemone's tentacles sting other organisms, but the clownfish have built up basically an immunity to the stinging cells. So the anemone doesn't even really realize that the clownfish is there, doesn't care that the clownfish is there, so nothing happens to the sea anemone. But the clownfish is benefiting because it now has a safer habitat to live in. So these are ways that populations interact with each other. They can compete for resources, for limiting factors. They can eat each other or be eaten, so predator-prey relationship. They can cooperate with each other, or they can have symbiotic relationships. So you have parasitism, mutualism, commensalism. You will be watching a few videos that will give you better examples of these. And remember, if you have any questions, please stop in at office hours from 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you. Bye.